Hello, this is Astrid Turner, and I wanted to make a quick video on how I like to use Nearpod for my Outschool classes. So, as some of you may know, Outschool has a couple different formats of classes. We have the live sessions where we all log in at the same time. And then we also have flexible schedule classes. And these are offline. So instead of meeting together on the same day and at the same time, what the teacher will do is maybe set up a presentation or a pre-recorded video, a tutorial of what we're going to be discussing for that week, and then assign them something to do during that week. So the students have the entire week usually to watch the video or complete the presentation and then complete the assignment and then submit that assignment to the teacher, post it in the classroom. So it's a pretty interactive process overall without the scheduling idea where we're all together at the same time. So I actually use Nearpod for both of these types of classes. For my live classes, we do the Nearpod presentation together online. So we log in through the Outschool website. We are in the Zoom meeting, and then I share the link, which I'll be demonstrating. I'll share the link to the students in the chat box, and then they can all log into the presentation together. So we're all in there at the same time, and we complete the project after the presentation all together in the classroom in Zoom. For my flexible schedule classes, I post the link to the Nearpod lesson as a student-paced lesson, so I'm going to be demonstrating that as well. And then they have the entire week to complete the lesson and complete their project, and then submit the project to me through email or by posting it in the classroom on Outschool. So to get started, I want to share my screen and show you some of my Nearpod presentations. I think it's helpful to kind of see what they look like. So here's my Nearpod page, and some of these lessons are ones that I've purchased from Nearpod. I haven't really actually used any of them, maybe one. I might have used one. And so you can purchase some, pre-made presentations that a lot of teachers in physical brick and mortar classrooms like to use. Or you can create your own. So I mentioned my art history class. For my live art history class on minimalism, I have this session here, and I would click live lesson. So I would click this button, it would start a live lesson. When I do this, as you'll see, it will give you a code and a link. And the code is here, and then the link is right here. I would just copy this code and put it into the classroom. Now, copy this link. If I wanted to copy this code, what you would use this for is if you go to the app, like if one of your students is using maybe a smartphone or a tablet, which some of them like to have Zoom open on the laptop and then they can just open Nearpod on a separate device, you can definitely just have them download the Nearpod app and then they enter the code. If they're having trouble clicking on the link that you put into the Zoom chat, you might let them know to go just type in nearpod.com in a separate browser and then enter in this code, and that code's going to be at the very top of the page when they when they enter nearpod.com. So this is how I would enter a live session. And this is from a teacher's point of view, but here on this top right, you have a switch to student view. What's great about this login process is pretty easy, but I can see who's logged in. So if somebody was logging in right now, or if they're having trouble, or if they say, I don't think I'm in, you can see whether or not they're actually in. They're green if they're good to go, and red if for some reason they navigated away from the browser, it'll turn red. So that's kind of easy for me as a teacher. As a teacher, I have the ability to click forward and backward on this lesson. This is an example of a virtual field trip that I set up for my Nearpod lesson, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And the students can move the screen around, which is kind of cool. So I usually like to include at least one of these in every lesson if I can. Usually try to find somewhere interesting for them to go. Of course, you can do the traditional slide where you just have maybe an image and the text, and I do that quite a bit. You also have these options for slideshows, bigger pictures, smaller pictures. What's really cool too is that recently Nearpod integrated with Google Slides. So I'll show you that as well, how you can actually use Google Slides to create a Nearpod lesson. So you have a little bit more like more options for layout, which is really cool. So as you can see, this one's kind of a traditional slideshow at first, and then we get to the poll. So I don't have any students obviously logged in right now, but if I were a student, what I would see is the question. If I had a picture on there, I would see the picture, and then I would see the options that the teacher sets up. So have A, B, or C. So I like to ask viewpoint questions. What do you think about this piece of art? Or what do you think about this painting? What do you think this painting is about? And I have some options for them to choose. And then they think it's pretty fun to be able to see, which option won. 50% of you said this, and the other 50% said that. So that's kind of fun. So they really like to use that. So as you can see, you can kind of make it a traditional slideshow with just a couple of activities. This option for Collaborate Board is really fun. A lot of my students like to use this one. Some of them get really excited about it. And basically, you have the ability to kind of add your own little post-it note to the board. So it's kind of like a vision board. I use this a lot for my theater classes because I say, let's play director or let's play costume designer. How would you design the costume for Ariel? How would you design the costume for, for this other character, for Puck? And so they're able to kind of like type out their ideas, but they also have the option for Google Safe Search, which is really nice, and they can insert an image. So a lot of kids like to do this, and we've come up with some really cool ideas together, which is a lot of fun. So Collaborate Board tends to be really popular. So again, as I mentioned before, you do have the option to embed videos. You can have that. So this is actually kind of nice too if you have like a slower internet connection or a slower laptop, and your students have told you that your videos are glitchy. This is actually what made me look into Nearpod in the first place, is the ability to watch the video on your own device instead of relying on my bandwidth. So when I click all devices, and you can either select to have this just be the default for the rest of the lesson or not. But when I click this, what this means is that every individual student will need to click manually on this play button. So I do find it helpful to go ahead and mute all of the participants in the Zoom session so that we don't get feedback from each other's computers. But it tends to work really well because they get really used to it. And then when they're done, they can unmute themselves and maybe they give me like a thumbs up. If I minimize my Zoom, I can still see the video panel for all of the webcams on the corner. So just like you're able to see me right now as I'm sharing my screen, you're able to still see the students if you minimize Zoom. So that's kind of helpful. So I can just kind of look out for the thumbs up. Sometimes I go back to Zoom and make sure I can unmute them and everything, make sure, did you guys finish the video? Did it work okay? And they're always pretty much, maybe a few seconds difference from each other, but usually don't have any issues with that. So this is a nice option, again, like if the videos are playing a little glitchy on your end when you share them from your screen, and that happens in Zoom depending on your device and your internet connection. So that's a nice option that I like to use, is embedding those videos in there. And another option is the Draw It screen. Now this is what it looks like for a teacher, but for the students, it's going to be a drawing screen where they can actually take their mouse, or if they have a touch screen, they can, draw on the screen and they can draw something. So this is kind of fun. I use it for some of my, obviously for some of my art classes. But what's really cool too is that for the teacher, when you're setting up the presentation, you don't have to just have it be a blank screen. You could actually have like a map, and that's what I actually use for my history lesson on the Black Plague. I have a map of Europe, and I say, use your drawing tools to circle England, and can you find France, and can you find Spain? And so you can use the drawing tools for a blank screen like this, or for a specific thing, like I said, like a map, or like I have a painting, a Picasso painting, and I say, find, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt. Can you find, it's a cubism piece, the Guernica, can you find the horse? Can you find the bull? How many eyeballs do you see, or eyes do you see? Did you find the sword? And so they can actually use their tools to circle them. So it's kind of fun. And then when they're done drawing, you can share it so they can all see each other's artwork, which is really fun for them too. So that's one example of how I use Nearpod for the live classes. And again, this is one of my matching ones. I usually do this one like when we're waiting to log in, when everybody's like logging in. Oh my goodness, I'm doing really bad at this. I usually have it to kind of like, it's an optional game. It doesn't actually count toward anything. So this is kind of like one of those matching games that I'm being very terrible at. But anyways, I usually kind of use this as a time killer. Like maybe we're waiting for the other kids to log in at the very beginning or at the end if we have extra time and I'm just like needing a time filler, I might go ahead and like in this case, this one's at the end. When I'm done, I click end session and it's going to close it for everybody. Now that's one example of how I use a lesson in a live setting. This is also one that I use for a live lesson as well. And I'm going to go ahead and click edit, and that way you can see what it looks like. So from the inside, the back end of this lesson here, this is what it looks like when I am making a new lesson. And you can see these are the more standard slides. So again, like if you were to add a slide, it's going to ask you like what kind of slide do you want an activity, which is like one of the games. Web content is like a website. If you have like a specific website that you want them to go to, you can just enter the URL and then it opens it up in like a separate pop-up browser for them. And if not, you can click add content, you can add a slide. This is where the virtual field trips are. You can browse some of the 3Ds and the videos. I've found them to be only useful for like science, maybe some very specific historical things. There's not a whole lot of options in those just yet. From what I've seen, but you can definitely browse them. You can enter a PDF. If you do enter a PDF, it allows them to download it and print it on their own, which I've done if I need them to do like a worksheet or something. And then of course, I've never used the live Twitter stream, but that might be kind of an interesting option depending on the kind of class you're teaching. When you click on a slide, the slides from the Nearpod website are pretty limited in terms of layout. So you have an option for like one blank screen, a title, and a big section like this one here, or you can have 2 columns, or you can, a title and 2 columns, or you can have 4 elements. And that's it. So you can't really move things around. You can't move the pictures around or anything as much. So what I'll show next is how you can actually create the Nearpod lesson in Google Slides and how it looks for that. So I think that's going to be a part 2. But anyways, this is it kind of works. If you need it really simple, you just need a simple layout, it's perfect. You can pick from some of the themes, like color themes. So if you just kind of want it standard, and I've done that for a lot of mine. I just kind of stuck with the basic themes because that was a newer thing that they've added to Google Slides. So I've been just kind of playing around with these, and they've been fine. So I've been able to do that. So this is what it looks like when we're opening a slide. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of options in terms of layout. We have the title and an element. So this is what we have here. Or you can change it to 2 columns, or you can change the entire thing to like 4 blocks. And each of those blocks can be something different. So this one can be text, and this one can be an image. And then you would just, attach what image you want. Or this one can also be text. It really is okay. They have some other options here, like a video. Again, you can search for a video directly from here, or if you have a link, you can just link it from there. You upload your own. You can use it from Drive, Dropbox, so on. So it's pretty cool. I think that if you need it to be like really simple and you don't need the pictures to be moved around, or don't need them to be super fancy, this works pretty well. If you need it to be a little bit more fancy, that's when we would probably use the Google Slides option. That's a newer option, and I recently created my first 2 Nearpod lessons using Google Slides, and it was great. It was amazing. I love it. So I want to show that as maybe a part 2 to this video. But this is just a little intro on how you can, create your own lessons in Nearpod. So this is an existing lesson that I have that I use for a live class. This is the Draw It screen that I have for this lesson on the Black Plague. And as you can see, my draw screen is a map. And then I asked them to locate England, France, Italy, and Spain. So just like I had mentioned before, this is an activity that is a little, it's pretty interactive. And then we do have some embedded videos. I have a game called Time to Climb. This is such a cool game. My kids absolutely love it. It is basically a race to the top of the mountain, and I've set it up with some quiz questions. So my first question here, question one, what was another name used for the Black Death? I have 4 options for them, and then I selected which one was the correct one. And so I kind of kept going on and on. So when they're doing the game, and there's a few options too. You can change the amount of time that they have for each question, and you can also kind of like reorder it, of course. Put the questions in different orders. When the students enter the game, they can choose their own avatar, which is so much fun. They just love it. There's also a couple different themes that you can choose from when you're in the lesson and it's time to start. It asks you as a teacher which theme you want to pick from. And right now there's 2 themes. There's a space theme, and then there's a mountain, like the Himalayan or something. And so both of those options have the students pick their little avatar, and then when they answer the questions, if they answer it correctly, and whoever answers it the quickest earns more points, and then the person that's at the top with the most points wins. So they really love it. It's obviously a big hit. It's really fun. And then last but not least, the web content. This is what I use when again, this is kind of like an additional, for this particular lesson, I use this as an extra activity in case we have extra time. But basically there are news articles about the Black Plague today. So, I'm able to select this link, and then basically if I click test this link, it's gonna show the way that it shows for them. It opens a new tab for them. So it's kind of nice because it doesn't actually navigate them away from the Nearpod lesson, but I think it does help if the students are old enough to understand how to minimize, how to navigate between tabs, and how to navigate between browsers. So that's something that I think is helpful. Okay, so now that we have discussed how to use the Nearpod lessons in a live session and some of the options for you there, I'm going to discuss how I use them for flexible schedule classes. So I have this folder here for my art history flex classes. I'm going to click on that. And you'll see I have 4 lessons. This particular class is 4 weeks long, so 1 per week. And we're going to look at my lesson on abstract expressionism. Now this one is one where, again, well, actually I do teach this as a live class using PowerPoint, because I just had set that up as a PowerPoint. And then for the Flex class, I actually used the Nearpod lesson. So some of the slides that I used in my PowerPoint presentation, I transferred over to the Nearpod lesson. And you actually can upload an entire Google slide, which we're going to talk about Google Slides in part 2 of this session. But this is how I use Nearpod for this particular Flex class. And you can definitely use it in a variety of ways. It's just the way that I use it. So for example, we had the live lesson option. We went through that, but if we go ahead with our student-paced lessons, I have one ongoing right now, but if I launch a new one, it's going to look very similar to the one that we opened up for our live session. It's going to have that a code and then a link, and different ways for you to share it. So I just copied the link and put it in the Google Classroom. But again, I like to give them the code too, just in case they're using the app. So the way that it looks when it's a student-paced version, it's going to be, I'll just show you from the edit mode, which you can't edit while you have an active code. So it just deleted the ones that I entered just now for the test, and that's fine. But this is what it looks like for them as they're going through. So, and you can also do preview, and you can kind of see what it looks like. And so basically they have that same landing page, whatever, I set up just like a landing slide that is kind of an opening title page. And then I embedded a couple of videos to start off with. So these videos were from YouTube. I thought they were really great. I think this one only has 1 video, and then it goes to a poll. And so the poll, they're just going to take on their own. Have you ever seen a painting or a sculpture that makes you feel confused about what it meant? A, B, or C. And so they're going to answer that question, go to the next slide. There's another video. There's the other one. And then this slide is a traditional slide. I actually recorded myself reading the slide just in case they may not be a strong reader or maybe they just want to hear it. And so I just read through the entire thing. But they actually do have an option for audio now on some of the Nearpod presentations. So that's an option to look into. I also have the option, I like the option for open-ended questions. I don't use this as often in my live classes because some students are slower to type, or maybe they could just tell me, right? So, so I don't use this a whole lot in my live sessions. I do in one presentation, but most of the time I use this for the flex class. And so what I do is I might give a question and have them answer it. In this case, I have a painting that they can click on and make bigger, and then I ask them ask them to describe what they like, what stands out to them, what they think about it. If they like it, if they don't like it. So they type out their response and then hit submit. And then I'm going to just go through the whole lesson. So again, we've got some slides with pictures and explanations. This is my drawing page that I had mentioned before with the artwork. And I have this actual painting that I asked them to search for things on. You can make that bigger and everything. So that's kind of fun. A lot of them like that activity because they can not just use the pen, but you can use like shapes and things too. Highlighter, you can write out things. You could insert a picture, but they don't usually do that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to play with, and I have them, looking for specific objects, and it's interactive. Another poll, and sometimes I like to use I like to break up the slides with some of the activities. What do you think this painting is about? And then I explain what the painting is about. So we have like a slideshow. We have a couple of other artists and things like that. And then the last video is me demonstrating the assignment for the week. So our assignment for this week is to create a work of geometric abstraction. And so we're going to use our tools like our ruler and our pencil or our Sharpies and paint it. And then at the end, when they're done, they're going to share that in the classroom. So that's what I like to do, and this is how it looks like on the back end for me when I'm creating the Nearpod presentation. So besides that, I'm going to close this up. Besides that, I really, really like the idea of using this for the flex classes because it's like they can do it on their own time. But I also like how it looks when it comes to me as the teacher. So you don't usually get a notification. I haven't gotten any notifications from when they've completed the lesson. But what I do is just I regularly check back on my report section. So this is the cool part that I think for my flex classes, what I like, my favorite part, I think, is being able to see the feedback from the students. So for that particular lesson here on abstract expressionism, I'm going to click on which lesson it was. So I've had a few other classrooms, but let's say this one here is the most recent. And it's going to show me a summary of the participation. So it tells me these two students participated quite a bit. If they logged in 2 separate days, it will show them 2 separate times. So that, you just kind of keep that in mind. So the quiz, I did not have a quiz for this one, but it has that tab anyway. So that, I can just disregard that. But for the polls, it asks, I had 2 polls in this lesson, if you remember, and it shows me the responses for both of them. For my open-ended question, it shows me the response that the student typed out. For the drawing screen, it also shows me their responses. I can make that bigger, and you can see that she circled, part of the drawing. Close that. If you did have any other games like matching pairs and collaborate, it'll show you any of the things that they collaborated. Time to climb is not available on student-paced versions. I'm not sure why that's even there, but but it is there regardless. So this is what I like to do is, just check back on their responses. You can also download like a PDF or as you can see, a CSV of how the students participated. So if you had a really large classroom and you wanted to get some stats on how the participation was, you can look at it over here, but you can also download it. So that's pretty helpful too. So that's how I use it. I'm going to close that up. So that's how I use it for live classes, for obviously for flexible schedule classes. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a very interactive way to engage the students, so I really love it. I'm a Nearpod certified educator, so if you do have any questions about using Nearpod in the classroom, drop a comment below and I'll try to answer it. You can also seek me on Outschool. If you're an Outschool teacher, I'm very active on the Outschool Facebook page, so definitely feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Nearpod is also really great. Their customer service seems to be really great. So far, I've had no issues with that. So one last thing about Nearpod and using it, you can use the free basic version for a lot of those options. You can still create your own lessons. You can still, do the live lessons and, create as many as you need to. You do have a limited storage space though. So if you're going to be buying presentations and making your own, that's something to think about. Like it'll only let you hold so many lessons in the free version. So you might have to, kind of get rid of some if you're not using them anymore or something like that. The only other thing too with the free version is that you don't get all of the options. So for example, when I'm in a live session and using Nearpod, let's say for some reason the link was broken for the video that I was going to play. I usually try to check that before each class, but sometimes I forget or I just didn't realize that it moved to a different location on YouTube. And in that case, so the students are like, it's not letting me play. And so you can actually insert really quickly in Nearpod during that lesson. When you have the paid version, you have the option to just kind of insert a slide, like almost like in an emergency, like, oh, just like throw one in there. You cannot do that with the free version, so it has to be like done in advance. You have to, double check that beforehand. So I think I'd probably be better about checking things beforehand if I knew that I didn't have that option. So maybe I wouldn't need it anyway. But I have been in that situation before. Another thing that isn't available for the free users for the lower tier of membership is the student-paced lesson. So unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to use the student-paced lesson unless you upgrade to the gold edition. And so that's something to think about if you were going to use it for flex classes, that you want to, you need to be able to upgrade to the membership. So it isn't free and it does cost, but they do have different levels. And I don't need, it doesn't seem like I've ever needed to go above the gold level. Now I will say that if you apply to be a Nearpod certified educator, you do get the gold edition for 6 months for free, which is really nice. So you may even just try that out. You get a free trial anyways when you join Nearpod as a new user. So you get the gold edition for free as a trial. After the trial ends, if you apply to be an NCE or Nearpod certified educator, then you'll get it for 6 months for free, which is nice. And then after that, you would have to purchase a subscription. Thankfully, I was able to purchase it using one of the promotions that they were running for Christmas. So you might think, keep that in mind, that maybe keep an eye out for some of those promotions. It's definitely been worthwhile though. My classes on Outschool have been profitable. They have paid for more than enough of the membership fee. So right now, it's definitely working out for me. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a lot of fun. So for the next part, I'd like to show how to use Google Slides and how to maybe spend more time like building your presentations. And so that's what I want to show in step 2 or part 2 of this video. But I hope this was helpful. And again, if you have any questions about it, feel free to seek me out or drop a comment below and I'll respond as quickly as possible. Thank you.